Nice. It is so good to see you. It's so good that you're here. Welcome to the 365 Success System Online School, and welcome to the class about stress, anxiety, and depression. I named my dog 5 Miles so I can tell people that I walk 5 miles every day. Get it? No. Whatever. All right. Hey, being in a good frame of mind allows us to learn. All right. That does not discount that we're talking about extremely important life and literally life and death topics: stress, anxiety, depression, what it means to be a human being. All right. But really, we're going to go deep into strategies and solutions and real reasons why we go through this stuff. And then we're going to keep it, as I say, for real, we're going to keep it real and keep it productive. It's important to be productive. And all of this stuff that I do in this online school, the 365 Success System Online School, is based around what high school refused to teach you. And for whatever reason, pre-K through grade 12, we don't make this part of the curriculum, and we need to. Anyone can be happy when they get what they want. The challenge is to stay grateful and peaceful even when the world around you feels crazy and dangerous and horrible. And that's really the key. And gratitude, gratefulness, that's going to be a recurring theme through this whole class. Having anxiety and depression is like being scared and tired at the same time. It's the fear of failure but no urge to be productive. It's wanting friends but hating to socialize. It's wanting to be alone but not wanting to be lonely. And it's feeling everything at once and then feeling paralyzingly numb. It's all true. And it's a really difficult place to be in, but we don't have to stay there. We really don't. Mental pain is less dramatic than physical pain, but it's more common. And it's also more hard to bear. The frequent attempt to conceal mental pain increases the burden. It is easier to say my tooth is aching than to say my heart is broken. And that's another fact. So we're going to work through that on how we're not going to stay silent about this stuff no more, and how for real, that we're going to embrace that change is possible and doable, and it's going to happen. What we're going to watch is a talk she did in front of teachers at a convention in Austin, Texas. And I'm like, why hope that your teacher listens to Dr. Brown and then brings the information to you, or uses the information in their classroom? I'm not waiting for that. So I'm bringing you exactly what Dr. Brown is teaching to the teachers so that you can learn from her.
And as long as we have a capacity for connection, shame will always be a real thing in our lives, because shame is the intensely painful belief that there's something about us that makes us unworthy of love and belonging. For children, especially in lower school, probably through about 5th grade, shame is literally the threat of being unlovable. Shame is actually neurobiologically in lower school experienced as trauma, because when you are not lovable and you're dependent on safety and nurturing and food and shelter, and you're not lovable, then that's a threat to your survival, right? So if teachers, and let me tell you, in the ranking, let me tell you exactly how it goes: parents, teachers, clergy, peers. Because one of the things that exacerbates shaming is a power differential. So I want to make sure we all know what we're talking about. So we're going to go through these. Let me put them all up. We're going to go through these 4 because they're radically different concepts. We use these words interchangeably, and they are completely different. And one of the 4 elements of shame resilience that the most resilient men and women have in common is they know the difference between these words, and they use the right word to express the right emotion. So shame. Shame is a focus on self. Shame is, I am bad. There's something inherently wrong with me. The one we confuse it with the most is guilt. Guilt is I did something bad. Shame is a focus on self. Guilt is a focus on behavior. I hand out papers, and John gets his paper back and says, oh my God, I'm so stupid. I'm such an idiot. I'm so stupid. I'm so stupid for not studying. Shame or guilt? Shame. The focus is on him. So what about if John gets the paper back and he reads it and he says, God, not studying was such a stupid thing to do? Guilt. One's a focus on self, one's a focus on behavior. You look at a kid and you say, you are a great kid. That was a stupid choice. Guilt or shame? Guilt. So let me ask you, let me give you a visceral understanding of why this is different. How many of you in here, if you hurt my feelings, how many of you could apologize and say to me, I'm sorry, I made a mistake? How many of you could do that? I could do that with y'all. Shame. I'm sorry, I am a mistake. That's the difference between shame and guilt. Is it semantics? No, it's not semantics. Let me tell you why. Shame is highly correlated with addiction, depression, bullying, violence, eating disorders, and suicide. And here's the big piece you need to understand. Guilt is inversely correlated with those outcomes, meaning the higher the level of guilt shame talk, the less likely it is for a child to experience those outcomes. As it turns out, many researchers argue that guilt is actually a protective factor against things like addiction. That's shocking, right? And it's not just semantics. You can't, how many of you have ever experienced shame just the way someone looks at you? So you can't feel shame towards someone, but use the right vocabulary and pull that off. But it's a focus on behavior. First longitudinal study they did with kids, they took a cohort of kids in 5th grade, measured whether they were shame prone or guilt prone. Meaning, did they use shame self-talk or guilt self-talk? Followed them up as seniors in high school. Shame-prone kids more likely to drop out, attempt suicide, and engage in high-risk drug and alcohol behaviors. Guilt-prone kids more likely to finish high school, apply for college, complete community service projects and hours, and engage in lower-risk sex and alcohol behaviors and drugs. It is a huge difference between shame and guilt. Does it make sense to y'all so far? Okay. Then you have humiliation. So this happened in a classroom that I was visiting. A teacher hands back papers. Everyone has a paper, right? Who didn't get a paper back? Who didn't get a paper back? Sally didn't get a paper back. How many of you are surprised that Sally did not get her paper back? Wait, keeps going. Sally. How many times have I asked you to put your name on your paper? Let me write it for you. STUPID. I'm observing in the classroom as a shame researcher. But wait. So let me tell you Sally's experience here. Sally's experience is this. If Sally's self-talk is, that is the meanest, nastiest, most rotten teacher ever, awesome. Or if herself, okay, because that is humiliation. Let me tell you the difference between shame and humiliation. Shame is I deserved what just happened. Humiliation is I did not deserve what happened. The only thing that really separates shame and humiliation is the variable of deserving. So if Sally is saying, oh my God, you're the most hideous thing ever, and I did not deserve that, awesome. If Sally's self-talk is, I'm so stupid, why did I do that? Here's the danger, and here's why humiliation is better than shame. Because as a primary caregiver, as another teacher, as someone Sally trusts, she will not tell me if she experiences that as shame, because there's no news. What is she going to convey? I got called stupid, I'm stupid. But if she experiences it as humiliation, she's a little pissed off. I'll never forget, oh my God, my daughter was a kindergartner and her teacher called me and she said, I always was kind of confused about what you did. Now I'm clear. And I was like, oh God, why? And she said, because Ellen was in the glitter center this morning. And I said, woo, Ellen, you're messy. And she sat straight up and she said, I may be making a mess, but I am not messy. Which I was like, oh my God. I've been marked by the whole, would that spread like wildfire across teachers, or yes or no? Yeah, they're like, Brene Brown, she's crazy. Make sure you add a lot of stuff in there when you're like, yeah. But that's what we've told our kids. Like, look, if you burn down the school, there are going to be some consequences. But no matter what happens, no name calling at all. Not at school, not in this house, not with each other. Steve and I try not, we don't model that. And between siblings, let me tell you, the biggest heartbreak I've ever seen probably in my research life is interviewing siblings, adult siblings who have a very disrupted relationship, who were cruel to each other. Because you know how siblings work, right? I can shame you because I know all the stuff that hurts you. I know about the acne and the struggle with the weight, and I know everything. Parents who do not intervene around that and say, that will not happen in this house. You will not talk to each other that way. If Charlie, my son's doing his homework, and he's like, God, I'm so dumb. No name calling. I didn't call Ellen a name. You called yourself a name. No name calling. How else does shame show up in classrooms and in schools and in organizations? I mean, I do most of my work in like Fortune 100 companies. How does it show up there? Same way in classrooms. Favoritism, gossip, name calling. And these are adults. But that's how it shows up. The last of what we call the four conscious affects is embarrassment. Fleeting, often funny after it happens, but the hallmark of embarrassment is when we do something embarrassing, we know that we're not the only ones who have done it. Does that make sense? When you're in shame, let me tell you how shame works. Shame cannot survive being spoken. If something shaming happens to me and I can call my sister or I can tell my husband, oh my God, this was exactly what it sounded like. I'm in a shame right now. Let me tell you what just happened. It can't hold on. Shame cannot survive being spoken because shame requires you to believe you're alone in order for it to maintain its power. Does that make sense? It's about speaking truth to shame. It's about saying, this is what happened. I feel completely alone, and like this makes me a bad person. There are three ways we defend ourselves or from shame. And I want you to think about yourself, but I also want you to think about your students, because this is something I draw on the board the first day of school. I draw these shields and I say, here are the shame shields. You feel shame. You feel not enough. You feel unworthy. You're going to pick up one of these. You're going to move away, move against, move toward. What is moving away? Some of us, when we feel shame, we secret keep, we hide, we get quiet. We just want to disappear. How many of you move away when you're in shame? Like, I just want to disappear. Some of us move toward. Some of us people please our way out of that emotional corner. Oh, you're so awesome. I'm really sorry. I know I suck. I'm really, we people please our way out. How many of you do that? I do all of them, sadly. And then there's moving against, which is my favorite shield and the most destructive, and that is using shame and anger to combat shame and anger. You want to dance? We'll dance. You want to do this? We'll do this. We'll totally do this. And I will emotionally annihilate you. And in the process, my self-worth and my authenticity will be just devastated. Because I will walk away thinking, oh my God, who was unleashed in there? But let me ask you this. You hand a project back. How many of you, thinking about this concept, can literally see kids picking up these shields? How many of them pull their hoodie on, slump down? My daughter wore a hoodie all through middle school. We live in Houston. It's like 100 degrees. And finally, at some point, I was like, Elle, what's up? She's like, no, man, this is my invisibility cloak from Harry Potter. I was like, what do you mean? And she goes, yeah, if I put my hands in here, you can't even see me. It's like, oh, I get it. I would have totally worn those in middle school. Move toward the people pleasers, and then the people who rail against. Screw this class. She's an asshole. I hate this whole thing. Yes or no? Helping, this is not mystical information. Share this with your students. Take a picture of this thing with your phone and put it up on your class and just say, hey, when we feel bad about ourselves, when we go into shame, these are the shields we grab. The problem is when you're holding this, you can't learn and I can't see you. So let's talk about putting these down. This is the conversation. What is the antidote to shame? Is empathy. Shame, if you put shame in a petri dish and you douse it with 3 things, it will grow exponentially into every corner and crevice of your school and classroom. Shame only needs 3 things to grow like wild. Secrecy, silence, and judgment. You put that on top of shame, it's out of control. But if you put the same amount of shame in a petri dish and you douse it with empathy, you have created an environment hostile to shame. Shame cannot survive it can't survive empathy, because empathy is what? Empathy is me too. And if you don't think you're alone, you can't stay in shame. This is my favorite work on empathy. It's Teresa Wiseman's work. It's perspective taking. It's staying out of judgment, recognizing emotion and communicating it and staying mindful. And so when we talk about perspective taking, that is about taking the perspective of others, and that's where we have to become listeners and ask, what did this mean for you? What was this like for you? And our answer, you know the number one exacerbator of shame in conversation? Empathic failure. When a child says to you or your partner says to you, I'm in shame about this, and you go back and say, no, it's good, it's not a big deal, I promise. That's empathic failure. Tell me why this was so painful. People ask me all the time, like, what's your goal in your life? I was like, to make the world a braver place. If you had one opportunity, what would be the most effective impact you could ever do? I said, if I could get in front of every teacher in the world and we could have real conversations about shame, about vulnerability, about courage, because I think the revolution will not be televised, it will be in your classrooms. That is where this will happen. 100%.
All right. And so that's what I believe too. I believe that there's 51 million preschool through grade 12 students in America. And all of us need this information. We all need, she hit every point. She talked about shame. We feel shame. We keep it to ourselves. And that's what makes it worse. All right. This is the end of section 1. So what I want you to do is, based on the video, but also your own experiences and stuff, answer these questions. You can email them to me at the 365 success system at gmail, or you can do it on a piece of paper if you want, but discuss it. Don't keep it to yourself. I'll answer you back with my thoughts on your answers or anything that you want me to do. But if you do it at home, like on paper, make sure that you discuss it with your friends, family, like whatever.